And we're on. Carl,
All right.
sir, finally.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. It's been 3 attempts
Right.
to make this happen. But yeah, we finally made it happen, man. So thank you for coming, man. Dude, we're very excited to have you. You have a very phenomenal story of history of martial arts and just kind of throwing yourself out there in a lot of different ways, from going to Japan to starting fighting martial arts at 30, which is, it's a lot of people. They kind of set this marks in their life where they're like, well, it's too late to do this and it's too late to do that, but you've been able to do it all, man. So we're very excited to have you, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So let's start with this, man. How did you what was your journey into martial arts?
So I started off, I was wrestling at a real young age. So I started wrestling at 6 or 7 years old, and I was mediocre at it all throughout, went through high school. And then I was a walk-on at this the 2-year college I went to. And I never started, I just kind of practiced with the team, really. But then I graduated high school in 90, then in 92 I finished that 2-year school, and then there was nothing left. So, I didn't really know anything about, 93 was the first UFC.
Right.
So it just wasn't open to you at that time. But then right around 95, I learned that there was a judo school nearby, and I'm like, oh, judo is like grappling.
What state is this?
New York.
New York.
I grew up in New York, yeah.
Okay.
So upstate, so up in the middle of the sticks. And the city closest to me, Utica, the population of about 60 or 80,000, I think. They had a judo school there. So I started going there, and it just made sense. Like, it was the next logical step in wrestling.
Right.
Yeah, so then once I started doing judo, I met who's now a lifelong friend of mine. His name's Bill. We started doing tournaments. Like, we were doing judo tournaments every weekend because we were both single and didn't have anything going on. So we traveled and we did judo tournaments, and we realized, well, we can do jiu-jitsu too. Like, it's similar to judo. Mm-hmm. Then we started doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, and then the ground made way more sense to me than standing, the judo.
So when you started, you were doing judo, and did you start training in a jiu-jitsu academy, or just decided that while training judo, might as well start doing jiu-jitsu tournaments?
Yeah, that's what it is. So we were only in a judo academy,
Judo.
But there obviously is some ground there. All the different ground aspects of judo. Those osaikomis, those hold downs. Mm-hmm. It just made sense coming from a wrestling background.
The pinning, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the pinning. Yeah, any type of like north-south type thing or side control. And then once we started like learning the arm bars and the chokes, like, well, everything was ground for us. Like, we'd use judo to get to the ground, So
right.
Jiu-jitsu just made more sense, and it was more fun, and it didn't hurt as much. Judo hurts,
Right.
man. So.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I found, and I've always trying to explain to people, is that they definitely pair judo with jiu-jitsu. But judo, while it's a phenomenal form of martial arts, you have a shelf life. You can be 40 and 50 and still continue to practice judo.
Well, I mean, there are freaks that can do it. And you can be
They're freaks, but your average guy is going to take a bump, and they're going to have bad hips, and they're going to have bad knees. Yes. And the difference in jiu-jitsu is that there's so many positions where you can modify as you age, or injuries, and you can modify your training according to your abilities. And you can be 50, 60, 70, 80 and still be able to practice jiu-jitsu.
That's what I tell a lot of people now. Like, you want to do, like, I see these people going into high school football and trying to do all that sort of thing. And I'm like, man, you need to do things like golf, where you have longevity. You can do it forever. And judo, you can't necessarily do that. Kyokushin karate, you can't necessarily do that. Jiu-jitsu, you can, because like you said, you can kind of adapt it to your ability and your flexibility and get what you want out of it that way. You don't have to go balls to the wall every time, and you can control it. So, and that you have longevity in it. You can do it well into your 60s, 70s.
Yeah, the problem with not the problem, but the issue with kids going into sports like football in college or in high school is that they're trying to go to college. They're trying to find a way for them to pay.
They don't want to be Deion Sanders.
Right. What they don't understand is I have a buddy that he played professionally. And he very, very candidly explained to me what the mindset of football is. And the mindset of football is high school and college is about getting you there. Like, they build a reputation on getting athletes from high school to a college and a scholarship. That's their reputation. So they really put a lot of effort behind behind developing you as an athlete to get you to that level. Same thing in college. In college, they get there's a lot more money and there's a lot of reputation based out of how many kids they're feeding to the NFL. But once you get to the NFL, the way they explained it to me was once you get to the NFL, they're already looking for your replacement. You haven't even walked into the field, and they're already looking for the guy that is. Are you a second a little slow?
Right.
Are you hurt?
It's cutthroat, right?
Do you want to do this or not? Are you in? Because if you're hurt, I don't care what your injury is. If I don't have you on that line, somebody else is willing
now
to.
you're hurt and you don't say anything. Now it forces you to kind of play injured
and that's and I think that's where the PEDs start coming into play because you understand that you're replaceable at the drop of a hat. So you start doing things to make yourself available.
Are they tested pretty hard in NFL? I know nothing about
well, I think it's a little bit of hypocrisy because you can test positive for steroids and be suspended for 2 games.
Yeah, that's an eighth of the season, though.
Right. Well, but it's 2 games. And you've already made a huge difference.
Cycle off, and then
you already made a huge difference playing under using the substances, making phenomenal plays back here. You get caught. You do your 2 games. You come back and you're already you're still the thing with performance enhancing drugs, man, is they do permanent changes into your body. It's not like you do it and then you stop and then it goes away.
Yeah.
Is every time you do a cycle, your body will change. You are that much better of a specimen. So these kids, man, they really have no hesitation to not do it.
Yeah. What's the incentive to not do it when I could be that much better?
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's a cutthroat situation. So
yeah, and that's the thing is I think a person with like a 7-year career in the NFL, it's a veteran. Like, dude, you lasted 7 years.
Yeah.
How?
Well, imagine that. Like the concussions he's probably got and what he's put his body through. Like, you need to go. You need to be a kicker. All right. Kickers don't have.
Be smart.
Right?
Don't. Be smart. Don't take unnecessary shots. No, but like talking about like the unnecessary damages that guys will take in their way to trying to make it to the NFL. Like I think that the family of Aaron Hernandez, the guy that murdered all those people, dude, he was crazy. Like I was just reading about him, about his. I was just reading about his behavior in prison. Like he was straight up a gangbanger, and he never outgrew that. But his family donated his brain to science. So after he passed away, doctors were able to pull his brain and analyze it, and he had the mental brain health of an 80-year-old person with Alzheimer's. So you have a kid in their 20s making lifelong decisions, who already comes from a troubled youth, right? So he comes from a troubled youth of poverty, money, violence, gangs. You introduce a lot of brain trauma and money.
It's a perfect storm.
Oh God, man, it's crazy. But so you started doing jiu-jitsu, you started doing tournaments, and it just spoke with you.
Yeah, so we were traveling, we were doing all kinds of jiu-jitsu stuff, and we were literally sitting. It was 1997, and we were literally sitting. I think I might have been at my house on the couch watching TV, and I'm looking through a Maxim magazine, and I'm like, we could teach English in Japan. I'm like, what the fuck? Can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
What the fuck else do we have to do? And
how old are you at the time?
26.
Oh,
so 95. I was born in 72, so 23, 24 somewhere. I can't do math. 24.
Beautiful people don't do math.
Yeah,
that's something I've learned.
So
we don't do math.
I was if God had given me math, the ability to do math, I'd be unstoppable. So
right.
He knew not.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
He knew not to do that. So we're like, hey, let's do this. We got nothing else going on. And within the year, we were in. So we got there in '98.
How did you start? What was the process to end up going to Japan to teach English?
Well, so I didn't have the 4-year degree. He had the 4-year degree, so he got over there a little bit sooner. It was just a matter of finding a company. It was the name of the company was Nova. They're now defunct. They're no longer around. I think there was some shenanigans at the highest level.
Right, with the Yakuza.
Yeah, I think there was some. So they're done. But so he got over there in late '97, and then I went over on a visitor visa, and then I mean, like an idiot, I met a girl right away, and within 9 months we were married. So
you married somebody in Japan after being there for 9 months.
Yeah. I married her within, I think it was after 6 months, probably.
Savage.
Yeah. Well, so I had my mom come over to visit, and my mother got married in 1958. She met my father on a blind date, and within 3 days he asked her to marry, and she said yes.
Wow.
And then they were married. Well, I mean, they're both gone now, but they'd been married over 60 years at this
So you're
point.
like,
So I asked my mom, I'm like, do you think it's too soon? And she's like, how am I going to tell you?
person.
I'm not the person. Yeah. So I was like, so I'm like, we can do this. We can make it work. I couldn't make it work. But anyway, I stayed there for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of jiu-jitsu while I was over there. And then I got into shoot fighting while I was there. And so I was and Kyokushin karate. Mm-hmm. So like a couple nights a week, I would do jiu-jitsu, Kyokushin, and judo. Mm-hmm. And then try to put it all together and try to go fight. You know, I got no business
now,
fighting.
for people that don't know, could you explain a little bit of what Kyokushin karate is?
Kyokushin is they actually have a school here in Tucson.
Really?
And it's full contact karate. You no punching to the face, no elbows to the face, but you can kick and knee to the face. And it's essentially you just come in and you square up with the guy and you just punch and kick the body and try not to show pain. Right? And then you get a windmill kick to the noggin and go down. But it's a brutal sport. It's a really brutal sport.
Is this do they not wear any protection?
Just
gloves or anything like that? Or?
Nothing, but they'll just stuff on their knuckles just so.
So that you don't break your hand.
Yeah.
But you can knock out the guy.
Yeah, and really no padding because you're just punching to the body.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's brutal on your legs.
Yeah. So you were putting all those three martial arts.
Trying to put those together and then go fight shooto, shoot fighting.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I did pretty well. So I had 7 amateur fights while I was out there, and I went.
What was your reception being as an American going over there to Japan to teach English, and you end up training martial arts? What was the reception from the?
Well, I did pretty
people?
well. So everybody was really cool. So I didn't have an actual gym that I went to. They have what did they call them? It'd be essentially like a giant mat room like this. And you'd pay $1 to go to the gym, and then over in that corner would be judo. Over in that corner would be Japanese jiu-jitsu. Right here would be aikido, and then we'd be over here doing our jiu-jitsu. And it was just a club where guys got together and we kind of try to.
Are those state sponsored?
So it's part of the city, right? So it's kind of like guys going to play basketball,
right?
But they do that.
Oh wow!
So and then you would just pay your $1 or whatever to enter the gym, and then you'd have access to everything. Yeah. So it's kind of, I guess by the state or the city.
Yeah.
And then we'd all just get together and.
How big did those classes get?
We'd have 20 people.
Really? In each class? Like in each? Really?
And you'd meet like 3 times a week, but Friday was the big night.
Yeah.
So that would be our Friday night.
So did you have a lot of people that specifically just trained there, or they had their own academy? You know how people treat like open mats? Was that kind of like an open mat?
It was like open. It was really like open mat because there really wasn't. This is '98, so there wasn't a lot of Japanese or there wasn't a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools going on. It was starting to grow, and what would happen on like our biggest thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Yuki Nakai. Mm-hmm. So he was in Choke. He fought Hickson at the end of it. So
he lost his eye.
Yeah.
For a lot of people that don't know, I think it was not directly after that fight, but after his persistence of continuing to fight. If you watch Choke, he is fighting this tall gentleman, Gerald Gordeau. Yeah. And allegedly Gerald Gordeau is shoving his thumb into his eye. Yep. And Yuki Nakai refuses to tap and catches him, wins.
Yeah.
And ends up fighting Hickson in the finals. Yep. Which also I find very fascinating, where they're having this discussion where Renzo Grace is a savage, man. To me, he's one of my favorite human beings.
Hickson or Renzo?
Renzo. But he is also a savage competitor that will show no mercy in the environment of a fight. And he is telling Hickson to punch Yuki Nakai.
It was Hoyler.
Was it Hoyler?
Yeah, Hoyler. Hoyler's like, Hickson's like, I'm not going to punch him.
But Hensel was there. Yeah, Hensel.
Hit him.
Yeah, they're yelling at him. It was Hoyler and Hensel that were telling him, they're like, why are you here to show mercy? If it was the other, because I think there's actually a point where they're talking about where they're like, do you think this guy would show you mercy? And I think Hickson like pulled, and that's what you realize the way that Hickson pulls. Because that argument stops when Hickson turns and he goes, I will win with honor, and I'm not going to punch him.
Yeah.
And Hickson actually doesn't throw a punch.
He's got a great quote, and I'll mess it up, but he said,
From choke? Or just in
just in general, and it was something along the lines of, if
we fight for honor, no, if we fight for money, I'll stop when you ask me to stop.
we're fight for honor, I'll stop when I want, or something like that.
That was a result out of a giant Japanese fighter that was asking to fight him. And this is like in the early days of Pride. And Hickson said, I'll fight you, but this is how much I'm charging. And I think Hickson was one of the first mixed martial artists to make $1 million in the 90s for a fight.
He was huge over there.
Oh, he was great, man. Because I think he also carried himself very respectfully. He knew how to cater to that, to the culture. And he was a great ambassador for the sport. But it was also a lot of shenanigans because they would ask, people were very interested about jiu-jitsu, and they're like, well, what's your fight record?
400-0.
400-0, but it went around a lot. Like I probably have met about 7 people from that area where they're like, I'm 527-0. That's an odd number. Just bump it up to 530.
Right.
Yeah. So this gentleman, and I forget, they just released a picture, actually. They hadn't released the pictures, but I think last year, Hickson finally released the pictures where the gentleman flies to America with Japanese media and shows up at Hickson's academy. Hickson is not there. They call Hickson, and Hickson shows up, and he kicks everybody out of his academy. And he says, I think he keeps his son, one of his brothers, Kron. Yeah. No, I think it was Roxon before he passed away. So I think it was Roxon, one of his brothers, a representative from not the Japanese media, but from the fight team, and they went into a separate room, much like we have here. So it was a small padded room. It was a giant gym, small padded room. They went in there, and Hickson told him, regardless of what you hear, do not come in. And he shuts the door. And they fought, and they're screaming, there's banging, there's slapping, there's punching. And about 10 minutes later, it stops. Hickson opens his door and says, come get him. and then there's pictures of the guy, just his eyes are swollen shut, he's bloodied up. The next day, after he's released from the hospital, the gentleman shows up with a bouquet of flowers for Hickson and apologizes. But that's where that quote comes from, because afterwards it's a famous Hickson Gracie post where his team is behind me and he's doing this. That's after that.
Some people gotta learn the hard way, man.
Yeah, but I think it's a phenomenal quote, man, where it's like, if we fight for money, I'll stop when you tell me. Yeah. If we fight for honor, I'll stop when I'm done. Yeah. Boss has a similar one. It's he was telling the story in some TV, like ESPN, where he didn't want to tell who he was, but it ended up being Brian Urlacher. What's that name from? He was I think he played for the Bears.
Oh, okay.
Giant dude, very nice guy, but you introduce alcohol to the situation, personalities change, and apparently Boss stepped on his shoes, and Brian is determined to fight him.
Boss Rudin.
Does
he not know who Boss Rudin
Nope.
is?
Well, so his handlers knew, because Boss apologized once.
This guy's probably much bigger than Boss, right?
Yeah. And Boss apologized and offered to buy him a drink. No, let's go outside.
Did Boss do it was he a dick? Did he step on
No,
a mistake?
So the way the Boss tells the story is Boss is a partying human being. He loves to party. He's a party god. And he's got that energy, and he's singing and he's playing the drums and blah blah. And in one of these things, he steps on somebody's shoes as he's trying to walk through the crowd. It happens to be Brian Urlacher. Fight is about to be on. So he apologizes one, offers to buy him a drink. Apologizes second time. Brian Urlacher touches him and challenges him to a fight. And that's when Boss told him, he said, all right, buddy, here's the deal. I've apologized twice, and you've touched me. If I have to do this a third time, we are going outside. It just happens to be that Brian Urlacher's managers or handlers that were there knew who Boss Rudin was. So they grabbed Brian, and they're like, dude, you don't want to fight him. And Brian is like, look at me, look at him. What do you mean I don't want to?
That's the issue with growing up, being super athletic and the biggest guy all the time and not knowing a goddamn thing, right?
Right.
Imagine what would have happened. Did they fight?
No. So it ended up being, what ended up happening was exactly that, is it pulled Brian away. And they were like, dude, that's Brian, that's Boss Rudin, a phenomenal MMA fighter. But you don't want to fight him. So I think the squashed it and stuff. And Boss told this story without the name, but I think people did mad and people were there and they're like, huh, that's this guy. But dude, going back to your time in Japan, so how long were you in Japan?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years.
And your marriage lasted?
We got married in 98, end of 98. And then I think we got divorced in 05.
In 05?
No.
Okay, so it lasted your entire...
03. Yeah, the whole time
so
I was
the
there.
whole time you were there.
I have a daughter, and I didn't really... So I got red hair, and the Japanese genes are pretty strong.
Right.
But man, that red hair popped through. So you got a little Asian kid with red
hair.
And
Jesus, she's got to be a phenomenal fighter.
Well, she was doing really well at judo for a while, and then her mom kind of pulled her out of it. But my ex-wife would be walking around the park with her, and like the old ladies would come up and like, oh, and like, did you steal a little white kid? Like,
Yeah.
So I didn't. Like, you can live. Japan's the type of society you could live there for your entire life, speak fluent Japanese, and still be an outsider because you don't, look like everybody else. Like, I had friends there. I was friends with them for 4 years while I was there, and like, I'm getting ready to move back to the States, and they're like, "Oh, you're really good with chopsticks." I'm like, motherfucker, I've been eating with you every weekend.
Yeah.
But so we moved back in 02 because I kind of wanted her to be raised in this society a little bit more than over there because I would just always be the outsider, and then it's hard enough, to be growing up a little bit different. But you get back here and there's a little bit difference. Over there, she would be totally different.
Right. So. And that's I think that's a difference between places like America, which is a pool of immigrants.
Right.
And being different is not necessarily it's not necessarily an issue where you have a place where it's Japan and
it's very homogenous.
Yeah, this is what people look like, and then you're there and you clearly stand out.
Yeah.
What did you have any? What was it about being the outsider where you decided that it would just be much better for your daughter to grow up over here?
Just like the pressure that they put on kids for testing. Testing is they put a lot of pressure on kids for testing. They have the standard. I think they do something similar here now, standardized tests. But it's a big deal over there. There's just a lot of.
Where does the stress come from? Does the stress come from the school institution themselves? Or families just
the entire culture. But then you add on top of that the family putting pressure on them to do well in testing and all that sort of thing. I don't know that I would be that person putting a lot of pressure on her, but in that society, I could see them. I see her growing up, and then the only thing, outside of that was just her. I would never fit into that society. Mm-hmm. And
was there anything that they did where you clearly feel like you didn't fit in, or?
No, there would be times when I was walking around with my wife or my ex-wife, and they would they'd talk shit to her real quick, and like.
What sort of things would they say?
Just why you're walking around with a white guy, that sort of thing, or like you're trash because you're with a white guy. And it was generally like the older generation.
I was gonna say, so it wouldn't be another young person your age.
No.
It would be
probably an older guy, that sort of thing.
Right.
So I was like, it happens. It happens everywhere you go. It wasn't like too stressful on me, but I like fighting.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. That doesn't help me out too much.
Right.
I'd be quick to, I turn quick.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't live like this forever.
Wow, that's crazy, man. What was the extent of a confrontation that you had with one of those elderly gentlemen that would say something like that?
That never went too far.
Because I would be curious as to where that came from. Japan and America had their issues, and America dropped 2 nuke bombs on them. So is that where it comes from?
Yeah, that's a big one. And then like all of the.
But it was just 2.
It could have been worse.
It was 3.
They could. Yeah, right.
The third one was on the way.
Yeah,
they called it off.
My understanding is Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and I was in Fukuoka, which is the largest city on the southern island of Kyushu. They had circled. I think it was Kitakyushu, which is northern Kyushu, just north of Fukuoka. They had circled that for a while, but because of cloud cover, they moved off to Hiroshima.
Yeah.
So it could have been Fukuoka that got blasted. What happened to the third one?
I think the third one was.
They tapped after 2, right?
Well, I think it was President Truman.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I'm horrible with names. I apologize. But yeah, so pull that shit up. But I think it was the president he was having like a direct feed in the description of what was happening, and when they saw the destruction of the devastation of those two bombs, he was scared. And my understanding is there wasn't a clear communication of what the capability of those bombs were, and him seeing it was just
It seems like you'd want to have.
yeah. But yeah. So but it speaks about the
August 19th was when the third one was supposed to be dropped.
yeah. But I think it was also the
Your son, Kyoto.
yeah.
Kyoto was gonna get nuked.
Kyoto?
Kyoto,
Oh, wow.
yeah. But I think it was also the drive of the military. The military all of a sudden had this new weapon in their hands, and they really wanted to use it, you know. And I think it shows on the amount of nuke testing that we did in America itself, you know, like this Desert Nevada, or there's an island in the middle of the Pacific that it's you know, uninhabitable, and they covered the entire thing with concrete, you know. But I think it was just they discovered this new weapon, and they were how big can it get?
Yeah,
you know,
it's
that's
a
truly
new
was.
toy, right?
It's a new toy. It's just how big can it get? So how many fights did you have?
With
Yeah, because you
legit
mentioned
fights or, like, fights in the street?
No.
Oh. You know, normal fights I went 6, 7 total.
7.
So
and you mentioned Yuki Nakai. There was an involvement with
yeah.
him.
So Yuki would come down, and he had Parastra. That's the name of his gym. But he was up near, I think it was Osaka, but he would come down and they would do a seminar. He would hold a seminar, right? So we pay X amount of dollars for the seminar, and it would consist of what you could do: a shooto match, and a jiu-jitsu match, and then the seminar. And then you go out drinking and eating after.
Of course.
So I always signed up for a shoot match and a jiu-jitsu match.
drinking.
Yeah, well, so I got to hang out with Yuki and sit there and talk with him because his English was pretty good and my Japanese was okay. So together we kind of figured it out. But I talked about Hickson and his eye was all fucked up and, you know, sitting there drinking beers with him and stuff, and I like talking shit to him, like, why aren't you drinking my beers? Like, so the one Japanese used to be pretty good, but the one phrase I really remember was like, "Nande ore no sake no me nanda," and you're like, what it means is like, it's like, why aren't you drinking the beer I gave you?
Yeah.
So he'd
stop
be like,
milking it. Yeah,
he'd drink the beer.
yeah. That's awesome.
He's a little guy, but he would come down. So I do a shoot match, jiu-jitsu match, and we do a seminar, and then so I kept winning with the jiu-jitsu matches, and I won another tournament. But we didn't have a gym, you know. So one of the guys I was friends with went up to Yuki and said, "He's won. You've seen him. He's won all these things. Can he get his blue belt?" And Yuki's like, "Yeah." So Yuki gave me a blue belt. So I still have that. Like, that's cool.
You're a blue belt on the Yuki Nakai.
Under Yuki Nakai.
That is so crucial, man.
Right. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. But then that was in '98.
Right.
And then I got my purple in 2015.
It's a small gap.
Right. But I never had a coach. I never had a coach till 14. So.
Wow.
And I was fighting. Once I got back, I was fighting over in Arizona and stuff. But you know, I shouldn't have been out there fighting. I don't know anything. But it was fun. But when I was in Japan, I worked my way up shoot fighting. I went to the All Japan tournament.
Okay.
And they basically they bring people from North, South, East, West, and the top 2 of each weight class can get a pro contract under shooto.
Oh wow.
So I went in and won my first match in the ring. Yuki was the ref, and then my second match. So I'm in the top 8 now. The second match was a guy who fought in the UFC, Kuniyoshi Hironaka. He broke John Fitch's nose.
Oh my God.
And he did this to me, right? So we were fighting at 165, and I come in, and I'm like, is he hollow? How is he that fucking? How can he be that big and be 165? Right. He was huge, like ripped, and I'm like, oh god. So I come in, I'm doing everything I can, and.
Now, there's the rules in shooter. It's open hand to the face, closed fist to the body.
We'd wear helmets, shin gear, and any strikes standing, but on the ground, no strikes.
No strikes at all.
Only submissions.
Okay.
Right, and this was amateur, but pro shoot though,
right.
Different. It's strikes standing and ground. So I ended up. I don't know. I didn't pull guard, but I couldn't get him down. I ended up in guard, and he couldn't do too much. Tried a triangle, I couldn't get it, and we stood back up. And I'm coming in, man, and I just ate a straight right, just like right down the pipe. I was like, bonk, and I went, whoa. And I stood there, and I had the common sense to take a knee and just take my standing 8 count, right? So I was like, I took a knee, and Yuki's counting, And I'm like, oh, I'm fucked up, man. Oh, I'm fucked up. And I look up, and he's just bouncing. He's bouncing. He's going, come on. And I was like,
Oh, he's doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. And I stand up. And I'm like, oh my God. I come in, take my breath, and the bell rings. I was like, oh.
Oh, thank God.
right? So he won. I lost all three cards, 10-7.
Wow.
I got crushed.
Jesus.
I got crushed. And,
Yeah.
so we get out. He ended up taking second. He got a contract out of it. But I remember sitting down, and my little buddy Yuki, Yuji comes over, and he's like, hey, that was real. Oh shit! Hey, we gotta go see a doctor. I'm like, what? Is it bad? And man, at the time, this thing was like all the way over here, and I was like, oh fuck, right? But Sakuraba was my favorite fighter. He was fighting that night in Pride.
Yeah.
And I had to get home.
I'm not missing it.
I'm not
You're
missing it.
Yeah.
So I just started.
Who was he
thinking-
fighting?
His first fight against Vanderlei.
Oh,
And I was
heartbreaking,
like,
man.
It was hard. I was devastated.
Right.
I got home and I was getting ready to watch it, and this fucking dude that knows nothing about fighting was like, "No, Vanderlei's gonna win." And I'm like, "Shut up, man!
up.
You don't even know."
Yeah.
We bet pennies on it, little yens on it,
Yeah.
and then he lost, and then I get home and he sent me a text, and he wrote "Pride" with his pennies. And I was like,
Fuck, man. Why was Sakuraba your favorite fighter? Because he is probably to me, and for many reasons, more than his fighting ability, he is one of my top 3 martial artists,
Yes.
favorite martial artists. There is a video where, and I love where he's, I love the how methodical he is about the way he answers his questions and the way the Japanese speak, where he doesn't, he did this interview, and a lot of the times he answers the questions, but he proposes a thought or an idea to the audience, and then he says, think about that. He says that to the audience.
I never noticed.
Oh man, it's phenomenal. It's really good. I think it's in black and white. I've shared it like in my personal page because they ask him so many. It's a MMA interview, but it quickly transcends into more about the minds and the spirituality of a fighter. Which is why he became one of my favorite fighters.
I got over there in '98, and you'd go to the video stores, and they would have entire sections, like a wall this big, of just fight videos, old fight videos from the early '90s up through. And then what Japan is really good at is blurring the line between pro wrestling and real fights.
Right.
So they're really good at blurring that line. So Sakuraba comes out of that world, that pro wrestling,
Right. Catch wrestling, right? Yeah.
and he was just a great fighter, but you would never see that because he was always pro wrestling.
Right.
Well, I started watching his videos, and then I felt like I discovered him. Like nobody knew who he was. Like in Japan they knew, but nobody outside.
Nobody
of
in
Japan.
America, right? Yeah.
So I see this, and I'm like, holy shit, this dude is so awesome. So I tell we're living in Japan ago. I tell my buddy, I'm like, you got to watch this guy. And so he's like, and then he starts just destroying. Right? I don't know that first UFC that was over there when he goes against Conan Silveira.
And they make him fight him twice.
Well, because they had him losing the first one, which was kind of bullshit.
Right.
And then
he catches Conan in a submission.
yeah.
And then they argue that he didn't tap. So then
Yeah.
they go, all right, let's do it again, which is total BS.
Right, and then he comes out and wins. And the Conan was much bigger than him.
Conan ended up going to prison after that.
Did he?
Yeah,
For
he
what?
just came out. I don't know, some shady shit. But it's so bad, I don't think we can even mention it here in this fine form of social media here.
I like living my life with unencumbered by criminals.
I don't like to get prosecuted by the Brazilian mafia. But after that fight, not soon after, he was gone till probably 2013.
No shit.
Yeah, he showed up in somebody's corner. I'm watching the UFC, and this is how you know you've been around for such a long time, where you're like an OG like you and me, where like you're looking. I find myself when fighters are coming, I'm looking at the corners.
Yeah, so like
right,
I see John Lewis, like John Lewis's corner.
You're like,
I'm
oh shit, there's John Lewis in the back. yeah. And people are like, what are you talking about? Like we're watching like whoever is coming up front, and I'm like, dude, pay attention to the corner.
Yeah.
That tells as much of a story as the guy
You
walking
see
out.
like Matt Hume or somebody cornering somebody. Like,
Yeah.
oh.
Oh man, this is gonna be good. But no, Conan Silveira comes out in somebody's corner, and I started jumping up and down because he was great. He was good, and but yeah, then I looked it up, through the wonderful sources of the internet. And he was in prison.
Wow, no shit.
Can you imagine being the guard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I watched back. He drops the soap, so you pick it up.
Yeah, I'll pick it. I got this.
I got this, sir. I'll pick it up. Jesus Christ, because he is a monster.
Yeah, he was huge.
He was one of those big, phenomenal guys. I'm sure through some chemical engineering on the part of the Brazilians,
Oh, yeah.
which they're very known for. But
Vitor medicine.
oh Jesus Christ, man! But no, he was like 6'8", shredded.
Yeah.
You know,
And then
and athletic as hell.
Sakuraba always fought out. He was a 185er, probably could make 170.
And he was always
fought
fighting
heavy.
205, 240, 230. Yeah.
So he comes out and beats him, and then I'm like, Jesus, this guy's awesome. And then he starts just stomping through the Gracies, and I'm telling my buddy, and then he's like, all right, yeah, he's yours. You know, I felt like I discovered him. It's like
Right.
Garage
It's my guy.
Band.
It's my
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
right?
No, nobody. Yeah. And you hate it when somebody like starts wearing their T-shirts. You're like,
Yeah.
fucking, you know.
Right, you bitch.
Yeah.
You don't know. So
You don't know shit. I
my
was a
daughter's
fan.
name is Kiana, and her middle name, it's Sakura, which is cherry blossom. But
that's beautiful.
I'm like, no, it's Sakuraba. And my ex-wife knows. I'm like, I want to name him after Kazushi. But I name her after it, but he can't. Like, I can't name her Sakuraba.
What about Kasushi? Is Kasushi a male name or?
Kazushi's male name.
Oh, damn it.
But Kiana Sakura Tyler. So I
Does she know? Does she,
Yeah.
Were you like? Have you ever showed like your name after this guy?
Oh yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
As soon as she was old enough to understand, I let her know.
That's so cool, man.
But then with that build up to him fighting Hoist, it was so awesome. I was the hook, line, and sinker just into it, man. And then I don't know how much he knew about it, but like Hoist was trying
The rules.
all the goddamn rules and all this and everything.
Right.
And,
And Scudeauer kept saying yes.
yeah, he was like, well, yeah, whatever. And like,
He kept saying yes.
At one point, he comes out in a fucking diaper and a bonnet and a nipple because you're like, what? Because Hoist is being such a baby.
Yeah,
You know, he's being
right,
such a baby
yeah.
about it. And then he just fucking stomped him for 90 minutes. That
He was
awesome.
beautiful. Nah, yeah.
So good.
He and then he caught what did he cut? Dislocated that arm
Hensel.
with the skin wrinkled.
Wait, like Hensel
He
looks
looked at
over
it. He looked at it. He goes,
and
"It's out."
He goes,
Yeah.
he's like, "Fuck."
What an animal, man. Yeah, he completely dislocates, and then
He beats on Hoyler.
he beats out Hoyler.
He beats on Hensel's brother Hein before Hein
Right.
died.
He fought Vitor.
Yeah.
He
That
fought
was
Vitor.
So he whooped on Vitor, and Vitor laying on the ground, and Sakuraba was like, "Fuck, I'm just gonna kick your legs."
Right.
And then they go over to Hickson, and Hickson's like, "Yeah, Vitor's not really showing me too much right now."
Right. Yeah. No. That's phenomenal. But I
next
think
day.
that's. But it was funny because I think it's places like Pride. It really allowed for new MMA to be created. So many new things really came out that you can specifically pinpoint to Sakuraba, because that position with the guy on his back with his legs up and the fighter in front. What do I do? And then you would see him like trying to punch the guy or something like that. And Sakuraba was the first fighter that started kicking the thighs.
And then jumping over.
Right.
You know, there's a
Yeah.
great. It was my
With the-
wall.
with the feet up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's jumping
With the
over.
feet up? Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, no, but he was the first guy, and then you could just see where he became a trainer. Where everybody was like, I never thought of that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's so many things that you can just pinpoint to Sakuraba to specifically how he changed the MMA.
It's just really weird. The whole Vitor thing was weird. Like, he must have felt something stand up that he wouldn't stand back up, because I think Sakuraba.
I think he
would've
broke
let
his
him
hand.
up. Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, I think he broke his hand. So Vitor early on, when he was young and chemically, so like, if you read the early like Carlson Gracie stories about Vitor came in like at 180 pounds. He was a big kid, but he was a very good fast boxer.
Yeah.
And then they put him on the bomba, and next thing you know, I think he fought at 18 years old in the UFC at 220 pounds.
Was that the one against Vanderlei?
No, there was a
Ferrazzo?
Ferrazzo, yeah, where he was just a specimen.
Like a
Oh, the
piston.
traps, man,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
traps, the shoulders.
top of his
So
ears,
he was punching beyond the strength, the bone strength structure of his own body.
Right.
So he early on in his career, he just had a bunch of like hand injuries. He would
Breaking
just keep
shit,
breaking his hand. So I think with Sakuraba, that's what happened when he broke his hand, because he was also used and accustomed to just the Vitor blast, right? The pop, 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 pop. And a lot of people didn't know how to respond to that. So then he would win his matches. But Sakuraba responded very well to that. Man.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
beat him. Oh man, what a legend, man.
Yeah.
So then what's next? So then we come back to America.
So we come back to the States. I was a dog groomer.
Right, I heard about that. So you have a very strong connection to dogs, and one of the things we're talking about in the podcast is you have a very extensive knowledge and understanding of the breeds and the traits. And later on we'll get into your online trolling that you love to do. But you were talking about how regardless how you raise the dog has its traits that it's in there. So we're talking about pit bulls, and we were talking about how regardless how much you love your show, like you can raise it to be a caring, loving creature, but at the end, in its essence, it still has those.
It has innate traits and genetic dispositions.
So, were you always a dog person, and how did this education in dogs started?
I grew up with dogs, but when I finished college in '92, I got accepted to a couple different colleges. I just didn't have the money to go, so I didn't go. But I could become. I could start. I realized I could start my own business if I became a dog groomer, right? And it was a 3-month school. I went away for 3 months, became a dog groomer, and then started a small business out of my parents' basement. And so I just stayed in the dog world from there. But that was when I did that after college. So '93 I started the business. I moved away in '98, came back. I didn't want to go into grooming per se because I don't know, it was like not a really manly thing to do, right? That's probably an immature way to look at it. And I was very immature at the time.
But it was a different world. It was a different world back then.
Yeah, I mean, it'd still be the same too. Like when you're talking about like being macho and all that type of shit, I was immature and I was very immature at the time. And I'd be 21, 22 years old as a dog groomer. And everybody in that world, it's probably still the same now, but every guy that was in that world was gay, and that is what it is. But I was so immature that I'd introduce myself at seminars and stuff, and my boss would be there, and she's like, "Oh, this is Carl," and I'm like, "Hi, nice to meet you, Carl. I'm not gay.
I'm not gay." Jesus,
like, it's so stupid, right?
Right.
Like, it's just an immature attitude to have. So I didn't want to go back to that. Cause I don't know, but I ended up doing it again.
Right.
And that's how I met my wife now. She's a dog groomer.
Really?
So we worked at the same shop. So
were you like, Carl, not gay? And she's like, "Oh, thank God."
I'm like,
Or then she go, "Really?"
I put out the vibe.
Really? She's like, "Really?"
Yeah.
Really? Perhaps
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Well, that's so crazy, man. But that's such a beautiful, powerful thing that you bring up. It's the person that we were versus the person that we are now. Yeah. And
I'm not proclaiming I'm any more mature now, but in that facet.
But in that, no, we don't. I think that when people look at us as a source of like maturity and but bro,
I'm 46. I don't feel 46.
No. I will forever be 25, 27.
Yeah, I'm that guy that went to Japan like an idiot.
Yeah, no, but it's phenomenal, man, because I think that it's important to be able to grow and to put it out there. It's like, dude, in my youth, and when I say my youth, I'm talking like 21, 22, 23, all the way to like maybe 30. Where I said some stupid shit out of ignorance, but we were driven by ego, we were driven by immaturity, we were a product of the world that we came from also. But also I think that our personality allowed us to continue to grow with the world.
So I think one thing that helped a lot with that is the martial arts, right? So I said this all happened in '93 or so. I started judo in '96, and I started judo because I wanted to whoop. I was always the smallest person, right? Mm-hmm. And so like I just wanted to. If I'm going to get in a fight, I want to whoop somebody's ass, right? So I'm like, judo makes sense to me because I wrestled my whole life, so we do that. And then as I got better at judo, I realized like, oh fuck, like what if I catch somebody that knows what they're doing, right? I got no business fight. You shouldn't be fighting, right? So you get to that black belt because that's the goal. You want to get there, and then you realize that like I don't know that I really know anything. I know a little bit more than what I knew before. I just know enough not. I shouldn't be fighting.
Right.
So let's just keep this as sport type thing. It gives you the confidence to be able to walk away.
But I think also being in the world of fighting, I think that it also shows you how quickly things can go wrong.
Yeah.
And you start putting. You realize that you're capable of inflicting great damage in a short amount of time.
Yep.
And
that same damage can be inflicted on you.
Right, and the same damage can be inflicted on you. And
I'm a big fan of inflation.
Yeah, no, I'll inflate the shit out of it. No, but it's as long as it's not on me.
Right.
But no, it's I think that's definitely one of the traits of training in martial arts is that you start having a bigger tendency of walking away from situations because you've been in those gym wars or you've done the MMA fight. So if you're done whatever it is, whatever source of competition you've seen it go wrong. But it's is it worth it? That's where you start thinking about it a little bit more, and you have the discipline of saying, you know what, man, I have no business getting into this fight.
Yeah.
But the culture of wanting to fight is very interesting because to me it does come out of ignorance.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I'm not talking about the competition. I'm talking about
like in a bar. Or
in a
shit
bar,
like that,
yeah,
having
just
that ego,
right, just having the ego, and you can always see it. You can see the guy where everybody's having fun. And you can see the guy that is just, I worked out my chest, so I'm just going to flex a little bit the entire time here. Let me grab my beer. Do you see my beer?
It is
and it's for guys that have been doing martial arts, he stands out. He stands out, and you just kind of watch him, and he's going to do something stupid, and you're going to be irritated by it.
I've been through that quite a bit. I mean, like I said, I haven't matured that much, but there was the time when I got back from Japan. And I remember I met up with some friends. We go out to a bar, and I just like I don't know what it was, but the bouncer really annoyed me. Like he just big guy, he's got the barbed wire.
Oh no! So he's a badass.
Well, so I know he's a badass.
Yeah.
He was walking around like the fucking. He was big. He was probably about 240, 250. But
they'd have the imaginary
his
lats
weren't that big, right?
Yeah.
And he's walking around. He's like picking up glasses and looking at me. And so I tell my buddy, I'm like, hey. I'm going to go up and straight up challenge that guy to a fight. I'm just going to straight up ask him if he wants to fight. So we're giggling about it. So I go up to him. I'm like, can I talk to you just outside in the foyer here? He's like, yeah, what's up? I go. Then I start thinking about it. I stand next to him. I'm like, oh, he's fucking big. and I'm like, before we get started, do you do any type of martial arts or anything like that? And he goes, yeah, I do judo. And I'm like, where do you do judo? It's a small town, right? I mean, there's only one place to do judo. And I go, where do you do judo? He goes, over at Brown's Judo. Frank? He goes, Carl?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He goes, what are you doing? I go, I was about to ask you to go outside and fight.
Oh, my God, dude.
And he's like, why? I go,
why?
I don't know.
You're big?
I didn't want to tell him.
You're big and intimidating.
Because you look like a dick, but I didn't want to say that.
Yeah.
But so back in the day, I remember he was much bigger, but he wasn't as built. But we still whooped his ass at judo, so he still was a little bit nervous. He's like, "Oh, I'm so glad we didn't go do that, right?" Because he thinks I would have whooped his ass.
Dude, that's so funny, man. I've always hidden my immaturity when it comes down to fighting behind humor.
Right.
So we were doing this training, man, and there's this guy that was it was so funny to me. He's a combination of everything that you hate, right? Because number one, he's not from New York, but he sounds like he's from New York. He's from like Indiana or some shit like that. And then he would put his hat on and fold it like he was in the military, but he'd never been in the military.
Right.
And then he would stand like this, but he was fat and he had no lats, right? So we're doing this training, man, and it's probably for like 2 hours where I keep eyeing him and just, I don't have adult supervision.
So annoying, that guy.
Right. I don't have any adult supervision around me. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. So I just wait for the right amount of time, or like the right time where there's not a lot of people in the room. So I was like, hey man, let me do something to you. I'm just gonna I'm not gonna hurt you, just please allow me to do this. And he's like, okay, just, and I grab his elbows and I go, dude, I grab his elbows and I go, just relax. So like, I just want you to see all the room that you have here, and you're not that muscular.
You're right.
Dude, and he didn't realize what I was doing until his arms were here, and he goes, ah! And then he pushes me. But by then I'm laughing, and I clearly offended him because now there's like 20 other people laughing, and he might have like thrown a punch at me, but I was laughing so hard I just kind of like weaved it, and I was gasping for air how hard I was laughing that he would allow me to do that.
That's so funny.
And just his reaction would be like, ah, he was like, no, my arms go here.
They need to be here.
Yeah, they need to be here. But so. But no, it's insecurity, man, and I think that's where it's there needs to be some guidance for these kids, man. Where like if you're walking around being a badass, man, it's like if you're that much of a badass, go train.
And honestly, like that guy doesn't sound like he did anything technically wrong, and like Frank didn't do anything
Right,
wrong.
we were just dicks.
Yeah.
We didn't have proper adult supervision.
But on the same token, so this probably isn't a good example of martial arts, but now I think
We're not claiming to be one.
But whatever. I was back in New York. We were living in California. The wife and I and family went back to New York for vacation. Then we're at this brewery in town, Saranac. They do every Thursday during the summer. They'd have bands, and then it's outside, and you just open carry. You can drink beers and stuff. So we leave this area. We go to this next bar, and there's a band up on a stage. They're up high, and you can get your beers right up front. So we're standing in the back watching, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna go grab. You want a beer?" And I'll go up to get a couple beers. Well, with my friend. My friend, he's a big guy. He's about 6'2", 240. He's kind of big. And he stayed with my wife, and I went up to get beers, and I hear somebody scream, and I turn around, and this big dude is like kind of going through the crowd, pushing people. It just goes up and just grabs my wife by both hands on her ass, just leans in to kiss him, and I busted balls. I'm like, you shouldn't have like leaned in too,
Right.
She did.
Yeah.
So
And she's like, "Oh, stop it."
So
Did you see me not wanting to do that?
you didn't have to have beers with him.
Yeah.
So my friend gets in his face, and he's a little bit bigger than my buddy. Well, yeah, I mean, one important rule of getting into a situation like that is know who he's with. He didn't pay attention to me, so I'm like, and I come out of nowhere, and I don't know why I did it, but an overhand elbow, right? Boom, just domed him, and he went right over, and then I was on top of him, and I'm like, "You motherfucker!" And I can see he's out. I'm like, "Watch what you're fucking..." And then somebody grabs me by the neck, boom, right by the neck, and I relax because I'm like, they got me dead to rights. So
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, I'm fucked," right? Start dragging me through the crowd, and I'm getting dragged. I'm like, "What the?" This is my wife. She grabbed
What
me.
a badass.
She goes, "We gotta go."
Yeah.
So we ran to the next bar over. We hung out, had a couple beers. My buddy goes, I'll go
Okay, so you didn't go home and be like, "All right, you just went to the next bar."
No, we just went to the next bar because
that's
we
good.
went over there, and the guy on the door was one of the judo guys that I knew. I'm like, "Hey, they weren't letting anybody in." I'm like, "I just yoked a dude next door. Can we come in for a minute just so I
Yeah.
can escape?" And he's like, "Yeah, come on in." So my buddy leaves, and he goes over next door and comes back. He's like, "I don't see a chalk outline, so I guess we're good."
Jesus Christ, man. Dude, that's awesome, man. So getting back to the dogs, man. So you're passionate about dogs.
Yep.
What's and now you work for Border Patrol.
Yep.
And you are a dog handler.
Yeah, next month will be 11 years.
11 years working.
As
Dude,
a
that's
handler,
awesome, man.
And then an instructor. So I got detection, which is like finding people and dope, and patrol, which is the bite dogs.
Right.
7 years doing that.
And so we were talking about the breeds, right? And we were talking about like how it used to be German Shepherds, the primary breed that law enforcement used, and now they're moving into this breed of the Malinois. And
Yeah, so we've kind of always used shepherds and mals, right? Because
Right.
they had the drives that we're looking for to get out there and do the work, right? Because
what are some of the traits that you guys are looking for in dogs?
so you want a dog. So you can imagine we're at a checkpoint all day, and we're trying to. You got to sniff car after car after car after car. The dog's only hunting for that odor, and once he finds that odor, he knows he's going to get rewarded. Imagine how many cars go through all day, and he's not getting a reward.
Right.
We want that dog that stays engaged in that. So they want that hunt drive. So we want that dog that's still looking all day, even though nothing's happening. So that you could take a dog that you can get it to recognize odor and run a car through with a little bit of dope in it, and the dog alerts and gets a toy. And then run 2 more cars that don't have anything, 3 more cars, and the dog gets bored. It's like, fuck this, I'm not going to hunt anymore.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want that. So we want that dog. That
So you have something where you keep taking him back, just kind of reasserting him that he's doing a good job. He finds the odor, he gets a toy.
Well, I mean, not always. I'm at the checkpoint, 4 days a week, and I don't catch anything, and the dog's just out there still working.
Right.
So and every once in a while, we'll try to run an aid through and get the dog a reward so he sees
Correct.
it.
Discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. But that hunt drive is one thing we're really looking for. We want him to get out there, and we want him to be able to. That hunt is probably the most important thing, to get in there and stay engaged all the time, even though
Right.
nothing's happening.
With the current climate in Border Patrol, or like with immigration, I think that one of the things that people don't understand is how it's changed. Where, for example, back in the day, it used to be very labor driven, right? So, for example, I grew up in TJ in Tijuana, and the crossing point to the U.S. to San Diego was this two little gates, man, and that was it. And it was two little gates, and there was the gentleman working at the gate was this what seemed to me at the time, but I'm also sure that he was that. He's just this giant of a man, and he was white and he was blonde. He was a giant of a man, but he was the sweetest guy because he recognized the car for whatever reason, you know. And every time we went through, I would hide, and he spoke no Spanish, but he would always act like he was looking for something, you know, and he would like start banging on the window, like shake the car. My parents would laugh because I'd be hiding, and then so it was cool. It was very cool. It was very cool. He he'd recognize the car, he recognized me, and I was outside. But we with back in the day, back in special, like if you read a book, man, when back in the day, illegal immigration was about labor, and the drug trafficking was almost a complete separate entity. Right. Where now they've merged, and one of the biggest problems is that you have people that want to come to America and escape whatever atrocity of horrors that they're experiencing in the world, but the people that are helping them cross, they're giving them bundles of whatever it is. Whatever it is that they're crossing. So it makes it very difficult to you guys, especially when they're being told, fight.
It's starting to pick up, yeah. So they're being instructed to, pick up the violence a little bit. Don't go down without a fight, and then at the very least, potentially if you get the boots put to you, then you might have a claim or something that there was abuse at the border or something like that.
Right.
There's a lot of assaults on agents that just doesn't get reported, and it gets reported within our agency. It doesn't go outside of that though.
Right, and that's being involved in like law enforcement for 15 years with the TPD, and then prior to that in the corrections world, it's if we reported the amount of assaults on police officers every day, there would be something where an officer was nearly dragged by a vehicle or an officer was punched. But it's also my problem with the way our agencies or police agencies across the nation are doing it is the sentiment of it comes with the territory. You should expect it. It's where you knew the violence that you've experienced. You knew that it was part of this, right? Where it really shouldn't. Yes, it's an element. Yes, but should you get assaulted, this person should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, right? And it's clearly not that. Do the agents and police officers have a fault in it? Yeah, because a lot of times it's pride. A lot of times they take a good crack at you. You take a punch to the face, and you're like,
"It's on."
Not only is it on, but what are the I don't want to prosecute, dude. Whatever. You got a good hit. I got my hits in.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that mentality. I'm about to prosecute the fuck
right.
out of you. Right.
But then it gets to the county attorneys, which ultimately, what a lot of people don't understand is that the police officers or the police agencies are the middleman between the crime protection and prosecution, and we have very little to do with prosecution. Ultimately, it comes down to county attorneys saying, "Is the officer hurt?"
I'll give you a good example. I was working in Blythe. I pulled over a vehicle up near Parker, Arizona, and it was a car full of illegals. There were four illegals, and I was unmarked, and because I have a canine ride, so they kind of thought I was just PD or something like that. So they pulled over, but then they see the uniform, and the bottom line is, I see, I look inside, they're all like stiff, they're not answering questions, and I'm telling them to turn the engine off, and I'm on the passenger side, and I'm like, turn off the engine, turn off the engine, turn off the engine. I see him put it in drive, and he makes a movement towards me, right?
Right.
Now, I wasn't necessarily in danger. I was able to push off the car, and they took off. And about a mile up the road, they bailed. So 3 went north, and 1 went south. The driver went south. One of the agents chased after him. Unfortunately for the driver, the guy that was chasing him was a marathon runner. So, it's just a matter of time he'll get up.
Yeah.
I round up these 3, and then I'm trying to figure out where where he went, right? Because they were gone for a while, but he's going over the radio. He's got something in his hands. He's not showing me. I'm like, do you have?
That is possibly the worst thing you can listen to
Right?
on the radio.
And I can't- I don't know
You
where he
get
is.
this cold thing on your body.
I'm like, is he in custody? No. Follow at a safe distance. I'm trying to figure out where you guys are at, and I can't figure out. It's a hard pack. I couldn't see sign. I couldn't. So he keeps going over and over. He's not showing me his hands. He's not showing me his hands. And then about 45 minutes later, I see him come out about a mile up the road. Boom, comes out. Guy's got the guy in custody. We put him in. I'm like, get in that truck, Speedy. He comes out and he pulls me off to the side. He's like, sir, can I talk to you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, remember when I was telling you he had something in his hands? I go, yeah. He goes, well, he turned on me and punched out, and I shot at him. I'm like, you fired on him? I'm like, I go, no joke. I just put him in the vehicle. Why isn't he dead? You know,
Right.
I'm not shot. He goes, I just missed. I'm like, what did he have? It was his wallet. So he was punking him with the wallet. And he finally
Right.
turned around, punched out, and the guy shot at him, and
Right.
luckily missed.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, we got to report this. But I'm like, look, this is what I saw. I'm not saying you saw this, but I pulled him over. I established they're illegal. He makes an aggressive move as they bail. Like, he
Right.
tried to run me over. Then they bail, and then he does this. I mean, it's all of those things together, and I think it's a good shoot, right? You're not going to
Right.
get in trouble for it. So just don't lie. Just tell
Right.
the truth, right? So I sat in on the interview with the driver, and they're like, "Did you try to run over this agent?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You son of a bitch!" Like,
Yeah.
So he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go back to jail." Right? I'm like, "Well, what the fuck you think's gonna happen now, dummy?" So FBI has to come out and all that. So FBI's there, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna go 111 on him, assault on a federal officer, blah blah blah." They didn't do shit.
Of course.
Didn't do anything because I didn't get hurt. I mean, I guess I need to be dead or mangled. You know?
Yeah,
He
and that's
admitted to trying to
right.
run me over.
Yeah,
They did
that's
nothing.
ultimately that's a sentiment that's starting to trickle into a lot of the thought process and decision that agencies are making regarding their own officers. Which I get where the public could be, because listen, the sentiment towards law enforcement, it's going to wave. There's waves where law enforcement it's beloved and people have a high understanding of what is it that all agencies are trying to do. And then there's going to be lows where people are completely misinformed of, for example, I don't think people truly understand what the mission of Border Patrol is. And then there will be a high. But when we're in this low, if our own agencies are mirroring the ignorance of the public, such as we have a guy that tried to kill one of our agents and we're going to let him walk,
Yeah.
that's a dangerous thing to do. If whatever you're permitting, you're promoting.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you have a guy
in the dog world, what you allow them to do, you train them to do.
Right, exactly. And it's the same thing. So now this guy goes back and he's like, yeah, dude, I tried to run a dude over and all they did was like, they yelled at me for a while and then I'm here.
Yeah. No, I had an attorney. They didn't even yell at me. I didn't even get yelled at.
Yeah, that is so crazy and unacceptable. What is it about Border Patrol that if you were able to educate the public, which is very difficult because people argue, when we're talking about posts on social media and stuff, that people argue with emotion and not really with, or people don't walk into a situation with the willingness or ability to have an intelligent conversation. If you were able to drop some knowledge from people and explain to them, this is the reality of being a Border Patrol agent, and this is what I wish your everyday person understood about the mission of Border Patrol, what would it be?
So I don't know that you can drop the knowledge. The people that won't accept that. So for me, it's black and white, right? If you've got somebody like I don't know who's against immigration. It's crazy to me to be against immigration, but there's a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There are laws that you have to go through, and not every case is cut and dry and black and white. However, if you come through legally and you go through the process, then you're welcome, man. You're going to be an asset to the country. If you come in illegally and you're trying to circumvent the laws and whatnot, then we're there to try to stop you. And like it's no animosity towards you. Just I'm going to sack you up and you're going to get sent back. I mean, that's all there is to it. So for people that are just kind of, no, we should let them in.
Open borders.
Right. Nobody will say open borders, but we should let them in. I'm like, you're advocating open borders. No, I'm not.
Right.
Then how can how do you let them in if they don't have open borders? There's a process you have to go through to come in. Go through the process, and I'm sorry, it's costly and it takes time, but
Right.
it's not a right. You don't. It's not a right. To
Right.
to come
I
in.
just think that the open border is it's a cute sentiment from somebody that doesn't really understand how a government or how a nation functions. Right.
Yeah,
There's limited resources to what a nation is able to provide for its people. And I think that, for example, places like Europe where they have, like France has a version of open borders, and they
working out
are
pretty well for them, huh?
and they are in chaos and it's in shambles, and they're having to look back at that decision of open borders and say, okay, perhaps it gained us some really cool points on Twitter, but in the real world application,
You're talking common sense. I don't think they're not doing that process. They're not going through saying, oh, you know what, maybe we made a mistake, or no, it just didn't. Because of other outside factors, this isn't working. You're not allowing it to work properly. We're
Right.
not looking at it in a rational sense. I mean, it's
Well, I think it's whoever's in power. So, like, if you look at the president, because they asked the president if what his thought process or what his plan was to curb the amount of terrorist attacks in France, right?
so they asked Macron.
Yeah.
all right.
They asked him, and his answer was part of living in a first world country developed is that you're going to have terrorist attacks.
That's going to happen. You just have to accept
You
it.
just have to accept it, right? So, and then that again mirrors the lack of thought that went into
But what
everybody comes in.
about? But what about? So I mean, like, I'm a gun owner. I own guns. I'm not a big gun nut.
Right.
I have a couple guns. I don't know every make and model of gun and the trigger pulls and all this. I'm not that invested in it. I don't really care. I just have guns. But what about the argument of? So there is one way to stop gun crime. To get rid of every single gun in America and forcefully take them away so nobody has a gun. Then there will be no gun crime. But that's just not going to happen, right? It's a goofy way
Well, so France has that. France has where you cannot have guns, right?
All right.
Their knife attacks are through
Right,
the
right,
roof,
right.
right? In Mexico, you cannot own a weapon unless you cannot be in
a hunt,
possession of a
like a
weapon
farmer or
unless you are on your way to hunt.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So Mexico is overrun with gun violence.
Right. But we're talking, so living in that, what Macron said, living in a first world nation, we just have to accept that happens. We're kind of on the same thing with guns, though. We just have to accept that there is going to be gun violence.
There's going to be gun violence, but I also think there's definitely a lot that can be done on the legislative side, where if you look at, there's more than the common denominator of guns in this
sure.
violence. And the common denominator is the mental illness aspect to it. None of these people should have a weapon, period.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not the common denominator there is not the weapon. The common denominator that you find in every single case is a long trail of runnings with law enforcement, with school authority, with mental health treatment that when unfollowed, unchecked, and ultimately ignored, and then you have a person that is able to plan out this elaborate attack and they carry it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what we have to look at is like this people have the gentleman that shot Deputy Chase White had a long story of violence, a long history of violence, a long history of violence towards law enforcement, a long history of propensity for violence involving weapons. At some point, he was able to get another weapon that he used against Deputy White.
I'd imagine it's not too difficult. It wasn't too difficult for him.
And it wasn't too difficult. But so what? At what point do we as a nation put our foot down? And in this situation, I don't know anything about that case. We're just exploring the issue of the shooting of Deputy White, and if a family member provided a weapon to this gentleman, that person should go to prison, and it should be that in that case, that trial should be publicized nationwide to say, look, listen, you can't furbish a weapon to your nephew, to your son that has a mental illness. TPD has taken the weapon multiple times. You can't do that.
Yeah. It's nuts. I mean, are you aware that about 6 months ago an agent was shot, Border Patrol agent?
No.
Right. So I don't know why it doesn't become public, but an agent was shot.
Well, it goes against the agenda. The agenda is
right,
well.
right.
So like, and then this starts jumping into your online posting, which is it's phenomenal. I find it educating. I find it thought provoking. But you posted a video of how that caravan that is now in Tijuana was how they broke through that border in the southern part of Mexico. And it's violent. They're literally breaking down the fence. They're throwing rocks. They're talking. There's yells about grabbing a car and ramming the gate.
Yeah.
And you made a post that said so many women and children.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Because that's all that we see here. Oh, it's just women and children.
It's
trying
just
to come
women and
here.
children.
Yeah, like, you look at the caravan and so you know what's going to happen, right? You can just see it. Like they're and listen, not everybody in the caravans is like a hardened criminal. We get that, but they're not coming here to do good things at the border. I know that. So it's just 22 to 40-year-old males just wrecking shit, right? Just to be those
right. That they're gonna. So now I don't understand what the thought process is. That they're gonna show up and just because right now the ball on society is swinging towards like humanity, open border. I think that's what they're trying to take advantage of. But there was an interview of a YouTuber on a guy that was part of the caravan, and he was kind of laughing about the entire experience of being part of the caravan, and he said, "Well, I'm just hoping that I make it across the border this time, and that they forgive me." And that they somewhere along the lines of they erased my murder conviction.
Good for him.
Good for him.
You miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah. What's the worst they can say? No.
Right. I mean, they just say no. Sorry,
Right.
sir. But yeah, you could. I'm surprised, honestly, that they didn't get here just before the election. And I'm also, when they got here, it was going to be women and children in the front all of a sudden.
Right.
And of course, with the tear gas thing, and I don't know. You've probably been gassed before. I don't maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that if they throw the canister there and they got a strong wind, you could stand next to it and there's no.
And you'll
issue.
be fine, right?
The picture, like it's blowing it that way, and they're standing here running this way. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think like for example, you have a gentleman like Jorge Ramos, which is like I think he's taking up that sword and shield of wanting to portray the caravan. He has an agenda, and he wants to portray the caravan as the caravan of women and children. Yeah. And he keeps making this post, and he's like, women and children, this is all I saw. Like if you go to the social media, that's what it says, women and children, this is all I saw. When you're showing on YouTube or when you show it on Facebook or whatever it is, these videos, I don't see a lot of women and children. I'm not saying they're not,
right.
But at the same time, they're there. But at the same time, it's the way it's going, man. And it's but I also find it hypocritical that my own country, where I was born and raised, Mexico, has such a hard feelings towards the U.S. on immigration, where we, and when I say we, it's the Mexican nation, is known for mistreating, kidnapping, killing southern Latin American immigrants that come up. And one of the things that they showed up on the news is there was this little girl, I think she was like 12 or 14 or something like that, that by the time she made it to the U.S. and they checked her, she had pregnancy pills on her. And that's because
accepting of a rape, right? She's going to get raped.
She's going to get raped. It's insane. So how are we as a nation of Mexicans, of Mexico, protesting illegal, protesting just the notion of like, this whole border thing should just be open border, where we are so malicious and criminal and negligent towards the way we treat our fellow brothers from Southern America, from Latin America.
We got a group in Blythe again. It was years ago. Got a group in Blythe, and there's one we would just do a voluntary return. So
right.
You come in if you have no recidivism, really, no criminal history. Just if you could try to talk to the judge if you want. If not, we'll just return you today.
Right.
No questions asked. We just drop you off at the border. So a lot of people sign like, I'll just try again tomorrow.
Right.
So is it pretty equitable? It seems to me. Like, all right, you tried, you didn't make it. We'll just send you back. So the Guatemalans would come in, for example, and this one guy within the group, everybody else is Mexican, and I'm Mexican. Now I'm not a native Spanish speaker at the time.
But you hear the accent, like, yeah.
So like the native Spanish guys, or Native Mexican guys, they knew it wasn't right. So, but he's claiming because he knows that if he says he's Guatemalan, they're gonna fucking fly him back to Guatemala.
Yeah,
he just spent his life savings trekking through Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Like we're like, look, if you gotta you're not Mexican, you gotta say you're Guatemalan, because they're gonna, if we send you back as a Mexican, they're gonna fuck you up, right? Like they beat the shit out of him, right? And he's like, no, I'm Mexican. He's like, empty your pockets. So he's got Guatemalan money.
Right.
You look at his shirt. This is made in Guatemala.
Yeah.
he wouldn't break, man. He wouldn't break.
But so I found that very interesting that there was a lot of the caravan that was coming up, and it was it brought up really what the ugly and complicated issue that immigration is, just because there was, for example, they were interviewing these people that lived in this town where the caravan was staying, and they wanted to feed them, so people are putting together this like nice humble meals and stuff. And they're going out there, and the caravan was demanding. They're like, "No, man, give me pizza, give me burgers.
Food,
this is crappy food. I want to stay in a hotel. Let me stay in your house." Right. Or they would completely trash where they were staying with no regard to or respect to the town that was hosting them, because it came down to that, like, the towns were tolerant, so they were hosting the caravan as they were coming through, and these people would show no regards. There's garbage and feces and urine.
I work in some of the most beautiful landscape there is,
and it's ruined.
And there's so much of it that's just trash.
It's just plastic bottles everywhere, and
clothing and shoes.
Well, there's friends that are avid hunters, and they talk about how back in the day they would be able to hunt closer to like 3 points and all that area, and it's ruined. It's so littered that you can't go over there. So that's a shame, man. That's a shame. That it's a complicated situation.
Yeah, I don't proclaim to know the answer. So.
If you had all the power in your hand to fix it, how would you fix it?
I don't know that, man. I don't know that there is a fix. I think a little bit more honesty in what goes out. Like, just for example, there was I don't know if you heard, there was a 7 or 8 year old girl that just died in
custody. Right.
But the story goes out like that. Like, oh.
Well, they know how to write it.
Yeah.
It makes it look like Border Patrol killed it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So like that's just not honest. Right. And now the whole thing about us tearing families apart and tearing babies from their mothers and stuff. And I'm like,
oddly enough, that started in the Obama administration, but
it
Obama
was going on before that.
Right.
I worked during the Obama administration. We did it during Obama's administration. Right. It's not.
But can you explain? Can you explain what that means with this whole separation of the families? Because it's not like, oh, there's an entire family, husband and wife.
Yeah, it's not like like a married husband and wife, son and daughter come in and we like rip them apart.
Right.
No, it'll be like, all right, well, this is my daughter, and like it's maybe a fifth cousin 2 times removed that has no relation to him, and they're just trying to get him up here.
Right.
Or let's say it is the father and a child, and the father has an extensive criminal history. Well, we got to take him and put him somewhere. He can't, and we can't put the kid with the other criminals.
Right.
So they have to be separated.
Right.
Now, I'm sure there's some fuckery afoot in there somewhere. I'm sure somebody fucked something up somewhere, and it didn't go as smoothly as they had anticipated it would go. But it's not a malicious thing that's happening.
Right.
Like there are certain guidelines that have to happen, and like I know. Just down at my station, the ACLU, I mean, if we have a juvenile, every 15 minutes you're checking to make sure there's food, clothing, water, to make sure they've gone to the bathroom, they've showered if they need it. Like, there's so many stipulations that go in with it that, I mean...
Well, it's also the humanitarian side. So what a lot of people don't understand, like me working in law enforcement, I remember going to the hospital to take a report, whatever it is, and you would always see a Border Patrol agent with somebody that they had to bring in because of their medical condition. Yeah. And I think that's something that people miss, man, is the fact that you guys provide, when you guys encounter a group out in the desert, one of the first questions is, who needs help?
Yeah, who needs medical assistance?
Yeah, who needs medical assistance?
I mean...
But people are not interested in hearing that, but please talk about that, yeah.
No, so I just know, I've seen it happen with guys I work with, and I mean, I've done it myself. You catch a guy, and man, he's out there, he's dehydrated, and he's got like 6 pairs of pants on, he's hot, and I'm like, you good? He's like, I just need water, and I'm like, fuck, all right, here's my water. Now I know I can't drink out of that bottle again.
Right,
Give him the water, and I'm like, are you hungry? He's like, yeah. I'm give him fucking some food, give him an apple or something. So Listen, I'm sure, and I haven't seen it myself. I've heard stories of, there's the agent. Border Patrol is a slice of the U.S., right? There are going to be great people. There's going to be some shitbirds.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's been some bad agents that have done some bad things. I haven't personally witnessed it. I've heard it. But for the most part, everything I've seen is the agents are top-notch, and they're trying to help.
Right.
So
yeah, there's definitely, like I said, there's a criminal element that's starting to come through, and I think that, it's like you said, the criminal element goes beyond the person that's trying to come in. They're trying to bypass the system, of legal immigration. But I think for the majority, it's not what you hear from Border Patrol. It's the drugs, the guns, the violence that is starting to come through. The decapitated bodies found in the desert.
yeah, right.
That don't make the news either because it doesn't fit the agenda.
Right.
Right. Exactly. So that's crazy, man. So, dude, brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You just had a super fight. Mm-hmm. You're how old?
46.
46. What does so for somebody, because you always hear this, right? You always hear the person talk about training, and you always hear it's too late, or
I need to get in shape.
I need to get in shape before I get in there.
Before I get
right,
there.
which is crazy. There's nothing that gets you in shape or in preparation for the sport that you're going to do. Right, I can go. It's like, you want to run a marathon? Absolutely. Let me go hit the weights.
Yeah, let me go lift.
Let me go lift to be in shape. Right. So, how would you guide somebody that is, for example, in their 40s, which is, for a lot of people, they check themselves out of the opportunity, the chance of doing something new in life, and we're talking about martial arts for our purpose. How would you guide somebody to start a journey in their 40s?
So I stopped kind of recruiting people, because you know how it goes. You can't make somebody do it. So
right.
If you have an interest in doing this, then don't wait around thinking, oh, I'll do this beforehand. I think you just have to get in and do it, and you come in with a mature attitude, and you can control yourself from being injured for the most part. You just got to come in and do it, and be smart about it. Don't overdo it, right? You can come in. You're
not that athlete from high school, right?
No.
And that's one of the biggest things. It's like a lot of people get stuck in that. They're 35, they're 37, they're 42, 45, 46, and they go to start a new sport, and immediately they're like, I'm that 22-year-old athlete that I was. And that's where those injuries come in.
And unfortunately, you don't know when you're first starting. You're a white belt. You're first starting. You more than likely, everybody will tell you to slow it down. Don't use so much strength. But you don't know anything. You don't know any better. You don't know
in the absence,
so,
in the absence of technique, strength.
Yep. So then your balls out, and that's where you're gonna get. The faster you can get through that, where you're not going balls out all the time,
right,
then you're going to have more longevity in it. But it's just a matter of doing it. I mean, it's life-changing once you get into it. There are plenty of people that have I know how to come, because I was training in Phil Bidwell and I were in my garage in Blythe for years. Mm-hmm. It was just the two of us, and he had never done it before. I invited him over. He had an interest in doing it, and he got bit by the bug, right? And now look at him now, right? He's purple belt, and he's doing great. Once it gets a hold of you, it fucking doesn't let go, right? But that doesn't happen to everybody.
Right.
So just come in, open your mind up, and see where it takes you. Man, it builds character. You're going to get physically fit. You're going to be able to defend yourself, or at the very least, defend yourself in a situation, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you can really hope to do. And then from there, you just keep going and slow it down a little bit, and you'll have a long life in it.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Well, sir, anything else? Oh, no, before we go, we got to talk about your social media post.
Oh, what'd I do?
Yeah. Well, so we were talking about, again, and it kind of goes back to addressing people, and I think it falls back to people not understanding how to hold a conversation about a topic that is dear and near to you, but if you want to bring it up, should you want to have this conversation, you need to have a conversation about that topic. So one of the things that we talked about, or in preparation for this, is like you and I are friends on Facebook, and you'll make like a certain post, and we were talking about the child molestation cases involving the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we're talking about the podcast is, have you had any blowback from those posts?
I haven't, and for the most part, I think probably because nobody takes me too seriously on it, but two, like I'm approaching it from I I have intimate knowledge of. I grew up Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I don't have any experience with that molestation. I don't know anybody that was molested, that sort of thing. But I'm typically making those posts to point out the hypocrisy of people not engaging in that, not finding a way to prosecute these guys and get them in trouble instead of moving them around to different churches or different areas. And it goes up to the highest levels, and we tend, for whatever reason, to ignore it. So I think people won't approach me on that because I'm looking at a very small facet of that. It's not the Catholic Church. That's not what the Catholic Church is, obviously.
Right.
But the very small facet.
There's a problem within the Catholic Church.
Within the Catholic Church. So I'm looking at one very small facet. I don't know how you argue against that. You can't argue against it. So that's probably why I don't get any blowback. Because you really can't. You just have to say, like, and nobody's going to get on there and go like, you know, you're right, that's fucked up what happened.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
If they had a counterpoint to it that would make sense, then they probably would do that. But there isn't one.
Right.
In my opinion, there's not a fucking counterpoint to that.
No, there's not. And the problem is that, like you said, that it goes up to the highest position within the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
You find. I think I grew up in a country that is primarily Catholic. So growing up, I went to Catholic masses. You know, I even went to a Catholic elementary. But you had probably in the history of the Catholic Church one of the most beloved popes, which was John Paul II. And to hear now in 2018 that he was involved in covering up
I think at the cardinal level, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah.
was,
And moving and not only covering up, but providing an apartment to a troubled cardinal, where that he moved him from somewhere where he was already had caused some problems related to child molestation, put him in an apartment paid for by the Catholic Church, where he continued to have parties where substance abuse was part of it. And it just breaks your heart, man. But then again, it's like that's a conversation that needs to be brought up. But I think historically speaking, like you said, I think I've made certain posts that have something to do with Christianity. And we don't attack the faith, but we attack actions that have been done in the name of that faith. So for me, being from a country from like Mexico, where the identity of our people was erased and destroyed and substituted by the invaders, and with that came their religion. To me, that is probably one of the biggest crimes in history. And you have somebody that, for example, you had a single individual, a single Catholic priest, single-handedly almost destroyed the Mayan language.
right.
You know, so when we make this post, it's not to attack Catholic faith or Christian faith. It's to attack actions that are beyond criminal.
Right.
You know, and those conversations need to be had, and those conversations need to be. If our post bothers you, then let's have this conversation. But don't throw your arms up and say, I am offended by this, and I can't believe you're doing this and stuff like that.
Just because you're offended doesn't make you right.
Just because you're offended doesn't mean you make it right. But also at the same time, listen, I have plenty of friends that are of Christian faith, and I've not once sent them a message like, dude, I'm tired of your like fucking posts of like, look at this beautiful sunrise made by God.
Look what God did for us.
Yeah, look at God. I've never once been like,
I expected to get. So I mean, to be honest with you, I remember saying, what post were we talking about? We were just talking about it.
we're talking about the
So there was a picture of Pope Francis, and I was like, he looks like a diddler. I'm guaranteed he's diddling. Right?
he looks like a demon. You
That
know,
might be a little bit too far. I have no proof of that, but so I could see where people get pissed about that. Yeah. And I posted something about that dumbass that just went to that fucking Sentinelese. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Sentinel.
The Sentinel Island. Right. So I made a post about that, and I actually got some blowback from that. But it was so funny because I made that post, and then it was paired up with like this person taking a shit ton of arrows to them.
Yeah.
But what I understood from the blowback that I got is that you saw the picture and got offended, but you didn't read the post. You know what I mean? And the post was
I think I read that.
right. And the post again was about just because you're doing a certain action under the flag of your faith doesn't make it right. Does that make sense? So, for example, this fine gentleman, which again is a tragedy that he died the way he died, but just because he's doing it under the faith of Christianity doesn't give. Oh, by all means, go ahead. These people don't have the antibodies to fight a common cold. These people have a history of bad interactions with Christian faith.
Catholic. They don't need Catholicism
or Christianity, or any other religion. They were kidnapped. 6 of them were kidnapped. They have a history. I think it was in the 1800s. A ship arrived in their island under the flag of Christianity, kidnapped 6 of them, took them back to England where they were paraded. And again, they don't have the antibodies, so I think like 4 of them died. And then the other 2 were returned. So you can understand where this tribe
they carry the disease.
Where this tribe carries the resentment of like, look, last time we allowed people with that book to arrive here.
Like we don't have, they don't need it. Nobody has to go there. I took a little bit of a different approach, right? So I said that stupid fuck that just went to the island.
Jesus Christ, man! I didn't even go there.
Well, no, he's ultimately going to be the demise of that clan because now everybody and their fucking brother is going to want to go.
Right.
And then people.
Well, there's people that are hungry for violence, right? And now they're like, well, they need to be prosecuted. We need to go get them.
Oh,
we need to figure out. No,
man.
dude, these people are defending their land.
Yeah. So like people were like, you don't have to call him names and all that. What makes him a dumb fuck? I'm like, all right, so it's a horrible thing that happened, and nobody's denying that. But got to have some common sense, right? He knew that they were like that. He knew he might not be coming back. So he's a dumb fuck in the sense that look what he did to his family. Look what he did to the people that care for him.
Right.
It puts them in that position.
Right.
Now,
But the mother is devastated. I think the mother is
Right?
one of the most vocal, people that are saying, like she wants a body for her son to be able to bury it.
Well,
and they can't get to that island. They can't get to that island.
Just
Period.
go in with some shields and shit and scoop that body up, can't they? Can't even get in there.
Can't even get in there. I think that the last person that successfully had contact with them is a guy that had spent over 10 years going up to the island, staying in the boat where I think the way he described it is they jumped in almost in like shoulder high water, and they came into the water and met with them, and they exchanged gifts. But I think he did say that at some point the tide pushed him into that island where he was. I think he said he was about waist high in water, and a kid from there grabbed the knife and went, "Don't step on that island." So they're very protected.
Let him have it. Like I tell the people. I mean, if I was there, if I could speak their language, I'd be like, "Don't do it. Stand your ground, man."
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be the end of you.
Right.
But there's only there's like 40 or 60 of them on there.
I think there's so very little known about them that their numbers are somewhat ridiculous. They either 60 or 500, which it's a big margin from error.
Even if it were 500 over the last how many generations they've been there, I mean, what's that gene pool like?
Right.
That's what I made that comment too.
The gene pool. Yeah, I can see
People
that.
get pissed about that too.
Well, fuck, man.
But it's like nobody I know, so it's not real.
It's anonymous. Yeah. So yeah, man. So I just wish that some people, like I said, if you're offended, there is a way of having these conversations. But
if
it's
you don't
also
want to have the conversation, then don't tell anybody you're offended. Nobody has to know.
Yeah, but also, like, for example, I think that it's social media. It's social media. Like, so it's, for example, Facebook. What does being unfollowed or friended look like? And what does it mean to our personal relationship? Does it mean that you no longer wish to speak to me because you unfriended me? Does that make sense?
No, I understand, because I think that's a lot of the reason. Like I think we're friends on it, but I don't follow you.
Right.
Because I'm like, I get to see like all the fun that's going on up here and stuff, and I'm like, oh, everybody's getting better than me. Why am I doing this to myself?
Right.
I don't need to see that. Like,
right.
And I got friends like a buddy of mine just got his brown belt, and so like I said, I got my purple belt I got my blue in '98. I got my purple in 2015, 14. This guy, we were roommates in college. He started jiu-jitsu 2010.
Oh wow!
So he got a late start. He got his purple belt before I did.
You're like,
I'm not unfriending. I'm unfollowing you. I don't need to see that bullshit. Like I just think about it. I'm like, oh, I suck. So I'm like, I just don't follow anybody because I want to see what's going on, because I don't want to put myself in. I don't want to get offended by anybody. And 2, I don't want to.
Right, but it also kills. Yeah, but I think it also kills like the ability to have like important, fun conversations, right? So, for example, if you and I follow each other on Facebook, and you're one of those people that post like 2 or 3 posts a day. I know what happened in your day already.
Yeah.
So when we see each other, we're like, Carl, hi.
Having a bad day, huh?
I saw your post from this morning. Instead of be like, dude, I haven't talked to you. Tell me everything about you. What's going on?
And I guarantee, like, if that happened, I wouldn't tell you anything that happened on Facebook because I don't even know what I do. Like, it's not that important to me.
Right.
So, and it's not real. It's not real life. Really.
It's not real life, but just there's certain people that just take it as that. Like it was based on what people choose to. And again, it's a prime example. Cats and kids.
Yeah, right.
You love your cats.
Yeah.
You love your kids.
Gotta show them fucking cats.
I fucking hate your cats, and I think your kid is ugly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I
I
barely like my kids. I'm not gonna like yours.
dude, I like my kids out of obligation.
You're right.
Yeah, but
I'm like, you're lucky. You're kind of good looking because I'd have to love you anyway.
right, I'm contractually obligated to give you a kiss. But talking about that, it's like if you have a person that is always posting that sort of thing, I don't want to see that. If we're friends, is because our friendship has an essence to it, where we like each other. I like how you live life, or what you stand for and everything else. But your social media is fucked up. I don't want to see your cats. I don't want to see your kids. Mm-hmm. So unfriend or unfollow, either one. What you're gonna person's gonna be like, dude, you unfriended me, and you're like, yeah, dude, because all you post is fucking kids and cats. Or to the other degree is a lot of times you're a little bit naked on social media where you have pictures of your wife or your kid or whatever it is. And just because we crossed the hallway at work and we say good morning, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to let you into right. Yeah. So I think it just has to do how you conduct yourself on social media. But at the end of the day, it's not real life. And at the end of the day, people use it for different methods. I use it as I've trained my social media to show me what I want, but I'm also taking a giant break from it, man. Yeah, where I don't want to see it, I don't want to post it, I don't want anything to do with it. I pull it up to check out the news, but other than that, really what I'm hungry for is human interaction. And I think the more you dive into social media, the less of that you have. Yeah. Because you know what happened to Carl,
But I stopped. I follow I lean a little bit right in my thinking, so I would follow so many liberal and left leaning things just to see what the counter argument is to what I think, and I couldn't handle it. I was like, especially building up to Trump getting the presidency. I was like, holy fuck, I can't handle this. So I erased everything political, and immediately I felt happier.
Right.
I was happier walking around. I'm like, why was I doing that to myself? It's not real.
Right.
Why would I do that to myself? So.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Especially because around that time, actually, they found that Facebook was conducting some sort of social experiment where they were purposely
put you right, they could put
well
you
that, or they were posting a lot of negative stuff to see if it would have an effect on your mental health.
Really?
Yeah, they were trying to see if they could make people depressed.
I bet they were looking at me.
They were like, this motherfucker.
This guy's easy.
We got him.
Good guinea pig right here.
So what's next for you, man? What are we working on? Get on the black belt?
Yeah, I tried to. I got my brown at 45, and I'm like, I'll give myself. I want to get my black belt by 50.
Okay.
I don't know how to make that happen. I mean, I go 4 or 5 times a week, and I went through the promotion. I watched everybody get promoted. Chris Santos got promoted, and afterwards I was like, hey, Phil, maybe, I don't know, maybe you just forgot. I'm right here.
Is it in the back of the list?
He's like, well, what are you doing in 2026?
Cold-blooded, man. Jesus.
So yeah,
he's got excellent. He's good, man.
But yeah, I'm in no rush because
I
mean, all that happens is I got my brown. I think it always feels like it's too soon. I got my brown, and all of a sudden, now when I have difficulty handling a blue belt, I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Well, the level of performance by this new guys, man, it's completely. It's I look at my students, and I look at the white and the blue, and even the purple, and I'm like, dude, I wasn't doing that at that level.
I was thinking about it. I have a very basic foundational game, right? I don't do anything fancy. One, I'm not going to bear and bullet because I want my neck to stay in one position, right? But I look at Freddie, and Freddie's all over the place dancing around and shit, and I'm like, well, I need to do that, right? Look at he's doing well, but I'm doing pretty well, just smashing through.
Yeah,
so
it's styles, man. It's styles.
I'm 46. I'm just going to continue to smash.
Beautiful, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.